That's right. Hold on. It's just, this only takes a second.
We supposed to put our masks on now, or?
Yeah.
I have
Right
mine
on.
in my bag, but I'm by myself, so.
Just don't sneeze.
Or start coughing, right?
Okay, you ready, Denise?
Yes.
Okay. I'll call this Morgan City Council meeting to order. It is April 28th. First time business, I'm gonna ask Tony if he'd lead us in the pledge. I'll ask David if he would offer open prayer for us.
Okay.
You're muted, Tony. Oh, is Tony on mute?
Yep. I'm on screen share. I'm trying to figure out how to unmute. Tony, can you unmute yourself?
If he pushes space bar, it'll unmute as he speaks.
Here we go.
There, I got you unmuted, Tony.
Here you go. Thanks.
I think.
Nope, can't hear you.
How about now?
There. Now we
Yep.
can.
All right,
See, this is our funniest episode yet.
everyone could repeat after me then. I pledge allegiance to
Allegiance to the flag
the flag of the United
Of the United
States
States of America.
to the republic
And to the
for which it stands,
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
oh God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with
and
liberty and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
Justice for all. Father in heaven, we gather before thee as we begin our Morgan City Council meeting. We're thankful for the opportunities we've been given to serve. We're thankful for this great valley that we live in. We're thankful for the freedoms that we enjoy. And we ask thee now, as we consider the affairs of the city, that decisions will be made in the best interests of the city and the community and the residents thereof. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, David. Appreciate that. Okay, now we'd like to officially excuse Jeff Wardell. He let us know this afternoon that he wouldn't be able to make it tonight. There's some things come up at work. So from there, we'd like to do the consent agenda. Consider the city council meeting of April 14th and the ones that have warrants. And they sent the warrants out a week or so ago. If you're ready, I'll entertain a motion on those.
You know, I've reviewed both, Mayor, and would move to approve.
Second,
Okay, moved by David and seconded by Tony, that we approve the city council meeting minutes of April 14th, 2020, and the one set of warrants as sent out. Any discussion on the motion? In case you never see the vote, all in favor say aye.
aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion passed unanimously. Okay, public comments, don't know, we have any, is that correct, Denise?
No, we don't have any.
Okay, we'll go to the resolution 20-11. Third item on your agenda. It's a donation agreement and supplemental agreement between Union Pacific Railroad and Morgan City on the caboose. Basically, this one covers the land agreement. In the past, we've had an agreement with the railroad to utilize that ground for park space. As most of you know, all that grassy area along Commercial Street belongs to railroads on railroad property. We have an agreement with them to use that for park space. So what this one does, this just amends that agreement so we can put that caboose on that park space that we're currently have an agreement with them on. Ty, would you like to cover some more information on the caboose?
As far as an update on where
Yes.
we're at or on this agreement. So on the very last page, second to last page of the packet is an update from Rachel Turk. She's kind of taken the lead on organizing and orchestrating all of the different elements that need to happen. Still some things to figure out there, but we did meet on site with Skyview Excavation, and they're got a plan on how to get that ready. We found somebody that can sandblast the caboose to get it prepped for painting. And then we have a local contact that will help with the track panel and the rock with Union Pacific. So I think a lot of those, who do we need to talk to pieces, who's in charge of what pieces have all been figured out. Now it's just a matter of timing and getting everything wrapped up. So I really appreciate the support and the help from Rachel Turk and the Historic Society, but it's still moving. It's just slow and steady.
There have been multiple emails fly back and forth between Denise, who's kind of shepherded some of those, as well as Ty and the railroad folks. So basically, that last sheet that Ty just referred to is kind of a summary that Rachel put together as far as items that need to be accomplished. But tonight, the resolution we're dealing with is merely the agreement to ratify the donation agreement, and then on the property agreement, just add the caboose to that property. Any further questions, discussion, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to pass resolution 20-11, a resolution adopting, approving a donation agreement and supplement to the lease property agreement between Union Pacific Railroad Company and Morgan City. I probably don't need the ratifying the mayor's signature on there, so.
That's part of what we're doing tonight.
Okay, and ratifying the mayor's signature on the donation agreement. I should have just finished it.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion by Eric, second by David. Do we pass resolution 20-11? A resolution adopting and approving a donation agreement and a supplemental to lease of property agreement between Union Pacific Railroad Company and Morgan City, ratifying the mayor's signature on the donation agreement. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing now, we'll proceed to vote. We'll roll call vote. David,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. Everybody in favor. Okay, next item on the agenda is item number 4. Technical Plan Assistance Program funds between UDOT and Morgan City for a general plan update. Ty, would you talk to us and explain what that one is for, please?
Yeah, so this is the general plan grant that I've been talking about. It's administered by UDOT, and we've gone the rounds with them trying to figure out what the process was going to be, the requirements, and where we ended with is I've already signed the grant award, so the city will be the fiscal agent for the entire project, even though the scope of work will include the county. They are sending us $100,000 right now, and then we just have to report back, do quarterly reports over the next year to show them how we've spent the money and that we end up with the adopted general plan. So the deliverable is a general plan at the end of the process, but we get the money up front, gets it off their books, in this current budget year. And then we spend the year going through that process. The county's portion is their expenses are just gonna be in kind. And so we'll have the 100,000 to spend, and then we'll have $40,000 of match money required. So using our own in-house costs, our planners' time, setting up community meetings, notices and that sort of thing, all just count towards our match in the project. So this resolution is just to recognize and ratify that we've already accepted that grant award. It's interesting because the previous year I put $20,000 towards general plan, and then started looking for someone to help us with the general plan and realized that it wasn't even close to the amount. This year, our budget was $100,000 to do the general plan. That was our plan at the beginning of the year. And then this grant opportunity came up, and then we got $100,000 in grant. And so our portion is only going to be the $40,000. And so it's really good for our budget, and still gets us what we need to accomplish. So that's kind of where we're at.
Hey, Ty.
Yep.
How does that money come to us? Does it come bit by bit, or one lump sum, or?
Yep. It
What-
should be in our account this week.
One lump sum?
Yep. So it'll come in this budget year. Next, in our new budget, we'll leave that line item will be 140,000 because we already have 100 of it that we received now. So in July 1, that line item will go to 140,000 because that will include the 100 that we got plus the 40 that we need to spend as part of our match.
Any other questions?
Ty, just one question. The initial scope of work needs to be approved by UDOT. How do we build that? And is there a timeline on it? Is there a due date that it needs to be turned in?
Yeah, we already turned it in. So we applied, we got the grant, notice of the grant award, and then we submitted our scope of work, and then we worked with the county to make sure that it satisfied UDOT that it was going to be a cooperative effort and it would address the concerns of both entities. And we did 2 different revisions of that, and UDOT signed off on it, and that's when we got the grant award. So our scope of work is already there. It's just a matter of putting out the RFP for planning firms to bid on the project.
Does the county receive likewise or similar funding for a general plan?
No, so they're just participating in our project. So as we went back and forth on how this was going to work, it was better to just have the city take the lead, take ownership of the whole project. We'll do all of the funds, and the county's not going to be transferring us any fund or paying the contractor. They're just giving us their expenses so I can submit them as match. So it keeps it all in-house and it keeps it just to us, even though the scope of work will include the county. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, just to follow up, why is the county involved at all? Wouldn't this be our general plan?
yeah, the county is going to end up with a general plan revision, and the city is going to end up. So one contractor is going to be doing both at the same time. So when we have the community meetings and we do our assessment, that was one of the things that UDOT wanted, was the cooperation between entities so that the 2 plans meshed. And we look at, our transportation needs and our annexation boundaries and
Sure.
make sure we're looking at the same areas. And so that scope of work will actually produce two general plan updates.
Great, thank you.
So Ty, it's a $100,000 grant. The city has a $40,000 match, correct? Is that correct? Does the
Yeah, there's
county- Does the county have any?
City
skin in
and
the-
county.
It's a 40,000 total match.
Okay,
And so that's a combination of city and county.
okay, all right. So that would not be just matched by the city solely. That would, okay,
Right.
all right.
So what we've done is we've just kind of, I'll work with the planning department, and they'll keep track of their time and their, you know, what their contribution is to the whole project, because we're going to be assisting the contractor with our own efforts and providing them information and that sort of thing. So
You have to present a one-page progress report at the end of every quarter.
mhm. Or half a page.
Or whatever, 10 words.
We'll see. Hopefully it just says done. Here's the plan. No, we'll give them updates and see how that works after we do an RFP on how we pay the contractors we go to. We just haven't crossed that bridge yet on what proposals we receive.
Any other questions or a motion?
Is 140,000 going to be enough to cover it with the planner organization?
So that'll cover the that I'm gonna budget for 140, and so we'll have a little bit of cushion there to make sure that we have enough to get what we need out of it. Even though we don't need the full 40, we can contribute more, right? And then at the end, if there's other things that the city wants, then we can go back and pay pay extra for follow-up projects at the end of the project. If we like the contractor, we like how it's going, and we want to, pay for additional things that are beyond the scope that we initially bid out, then we could do that in a subsequent year's budget. We'll know more, as we get into it. But I think, for the scope, that's what we're going to put out there and see what we get. So.
Any other questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mayor,
Tony,
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 20-12, the technical planning assistant program funds cooperative agreement between UDOT and Morgan City for the general plan update.
I'll second that, Mayor.
okay, motion by Tony, second by Jeffrey. We passed resolution 20-12, which is a technical plan assistance program funds cooperative agreement between UDOT and Morgan City for the general plan update. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. We'll go by roll call vote. David,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously, and I'll file an agreement. Okay, now we'll move to resolution 20-13, which is an interlocal agreement for funds for Morgan County Recreation Program. Eric, since we've asked you to serve on that board as a city representative, would you cover that one for us?
We'll do the best we can, Mayor. So basically, this is the same agreement that we enter into every year for the rec board. It's a year-long agreement. Pretty much the same thing. It has been updated just a little bit, and so it's really nothing new. It's just kind of the same. Is that correct?
Let me clarify that just a bit.
You got a question, Mayor?
Let me clarify just a couple
Okay,
of pieces.
thank you.
Prior to this, we used to have the funding come from Morgan City, Morgan County, and the school district. Then what, a year and a half ago, the people voted, we voted in a tax, the county put a tax up and that was voted for. So the mechanism that's changed with this is the funding mechanism. The funding mechanism going forward with this will be that tax was passed in the county. And that tax will be the funding mechanism for this. That piece just changed.
Yes.
The other piece that's changed is the county will then be the physical agent for the recreation board. Those are the two pieces that change. So therefore, out of our budget, we will not be putting any money towards rec program from our budget, except there are two things in the agreement we agree to do as a city. Those two things are to be able to let the rec board use the city park baseball diamond and for us to maintain, the diamond. And then we also asked us to have one member from the city council be on the recreation board. That's our commitment with this new agreement, which used the funds that was passed. It has been a year and a half ago, Tony. I can't remember how long ago that vote was. The county passed that funding. So that's a change. Other than that, it's the same.
Mayor, can I add to that a little bit?
You bet, Tony, please.
Maybe for the benefit of Dave, if nothing else.
Yeah.
For years and years and years, we funded that recreation program. It was a 44%, 44%, 12% split, with the county and the school board paying 44% each and the city contributing 12%. From a personal note, I never did particularly care for that. It didn't make any sense to me whatsoever that we funded it that way. And so we put this initiative out to institute a ramp tax, recreation, arts, museums, parks, a 1/10 of 1% tax, and that we've used that revenue generated from that ramp tax to fund our recreation program in the future, which would alleviate that 44, 44, 12 split that we did for, well, as long as I'd been on city council. So to me, this is a lot cleaner way to fund it than I never could make heads or tails out of that 44, 44, 12 split. So that's just a little brief history that I thought maybe Dave would be interested in knowing.
Yeah, thank you, Tony.
Gary, I don't know if you have access to that, Gary, access to that agreement.
Yes, I do.
Would you look at on page 1, number 3 is members of the board, and then A, and look at number 1 for A. That's worded a little bit probably not appropriate or not correctly. I don't know if it's a big enough deal we need to say anything about that or not. The county council already signed off on this, and that's who brought to us to sign off and take the school board.
It looks like what they've done. It looks like they've ignored the fact that there's only one member, one
Right,
representative.
yeah, just cut and paste. Number 1, number 2 say the same thing. There's only one member from the city, which is fine. Is it a big deal? Do we need to strike those words out on that number 1? They're not appropriate.
I don't think so. If they've
Okay.
already approved it, I think they're fine. What it says is you have to have an elected official appointed by the city taking up that one position.
Right.
And if, it would be a technicality to, at the end of 2 years, reappoint the same person. I think you're just fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
We'll change that next time it comes through. It'll come. through.
All right. No problem. I'll mention that. I'll mention that to Kilmer. Eric, you can mention it to Kilmer.
Okay, I will.
Okay, further questions or entertain a motion?
Right,
Mayor?
while we're on number 3 there, third section, 3A2, it says Morgan County Board of Education. Should that be the Morgan County School District Board of Education?
Let's see.
You know,
Yep, you have to be consistent with the first page.
yeah,
Or it should
well,
be.
the very beginning is Morgan County School District.
Right,
So maybe a change for next time also.
right. I'll note that, let Robert know that.
Yeah,
I'll make a note and have Robert change that.
is the school district run by the Board of Education? Isn't it?
It's the governing board. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah,
Yes,
In the beginning of the document, it refers to them as the district. So it's less confusing to call them the district and this board as the board, the governing board of the recreation.
yeah, I think either way, we're fine.
yeah, I'll mention that.
To be more,
Mayor?
consistent, we can change that. That'd be good.
Mayor, may I ask another question?
Sure.
I'm on page 2, number 6, fiscal agent. There's an A1, I'm on 1I. To include the recreation budget as part of its legal annual budgeting process and hearing, thereby providing the public with an opportunity to have input. So that budget will include the monies generated from that ramp tax. Is that correct?
Well, I understand what they're saying. What that says is when the county does our annual budget hearings, that the recreation fund, since it's part of the county funds, will be part of that annual review in the county budget.
It'll be a line item on the county budget, correct?
Yes, yes. That's the way I understand it.
But that would also include that, I'm assuming that would include all of that money that is generated by that ramp tax. Is that fair to say?
That's the way it should be done. On the county budget should be done that way, yes.
That's why the county is the fiscal agent, is because it's dealing with that tax. So it needs to be on their books.
And there's a restriction under state law as to what they can use it for, what they can use the ramp tax for.
Any further discussion, questions, or I'll entertain a motion?
Mayor,
Tony,
I will make a motion that we adopt resolution 20-13, a resolution adopting and approving an interlocal cooperation agreement between Morgan County School District, Morgan City, and Morgan County for the Morgan County Recreation Program and establishing a board, fiscal agent, and recreation director for the administration of those services.
is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, motion by Tony, second by Jeffrey. We pass resolution 20-13. A resolution adopting and approving an interlocal agreement, an interlocal cooperative agreement between Morgan County School District, Morgan City, and Morgan County for the Morgan County Recreation Program and establishing and empowering a board, fiscal agent, and recreation director for the administration of those services. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing none, proceed to vote. In roll call vote, David,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously with 5 in favor, 5 ayes. Okay, we'll now move to item number 6 on the agenda. Final approval Pheasant Run subdivision. Tony, since that came to us out of planning commission, would you work with that? Also, as you're probably aware, we have David Pitcher on with us, and we also have Tom Harding on with us. Tom Harding representing the landowner, David Pitcher representing the developer. Tony, would you discuss that for us, please?
Certainly. There's a couple of items here that pertain to this subdivision, but the subdivision itself, it was heard in planning meeting last week. It was presented to the planning commission. They voted unanimously to send it to the city council for final approval. this is the property that's located approximately 175 north, 525 west. And it is adjacent to the Wasatch Shadow subdivision. And in fact, the one access point will be from an existing stub road created in that Wasatch Shadow subdivision, which is namely 525 west. On the west is the Scott Green property, single lot development. I think that was comprised of about 7 acres. And the remaining surrounding properties are all zoned agriculture at this time. It's a 40 unit subdivision on a little over 17 acres. Everything is consistent with the requirements. Each of the proposed lots have the minimum required square footage, which is 10,000 square feet, required frontage of 80 feet. And then a maintenance agreement and a temporary right-of-way and emergency access easement have been established for a 20-foot wide lane from 300 West, commonly known as Island Road, to the Pheasant Run subdivision for emergency use, fire, and other emergency vehicles. You also have a copy of that maintenance agreement. Some of the things that is discussed in the maintenance agreement are the construction of the secondary access is the owner's responsibility. The maintenance of the secondary access would be the owner's responsibility. The city does have oversight inspection authority to, the owner gives grants authority to the city to inspect this temporary right-of-way. They also have the ability, the city also has the ability to make a notice of any deficiencies, at which time the owner would be required to make repairs. The owner doesn't make the repairs, the city will go in and make the necessary repairs and bill the owner. That's kind of the highlights of the maintenance agreement. And Dave, you were there as well. Have I missed anything, or can you think of anything else that I may have missed?
No, that covers it. There was a staff report included with it that recommended a positive consideration.
Oh, and you all have in your package, you have a checklist, you have the laundry list in there, and you can see that all of those requirements have been met. This has been a subdivision that's been in progress for a while now. It's been a few months, but I think that pretty much covers it, unless someone has any questions concerning this.
Any questions from the members of the council?
I have a couple of just technical questions, and maybe Gary, you could best field it, but difference between a temporary right-of-way and a permanent right-of-way, and when does temporary become permanent? It looks like you're on mute, Gary.
I got you.
Okay.
Sorry
you go.
about that. Don't you wish you could do that to lawyers more often?
Boy, that's convenient right there.
I heard that's the only reason they created Zoom.
No, that's the reason they created Moot on
Some
Zoom.
people
The other
would say-
thing to know, Gary, is as the Zoom host, if we remove someone from the meeting, they can't come back in either. So
Sorry.
You better behave.
we have one more card in our deck over here. So.
You can put them in a waiting room forever. I know.
Yeah.
That's the format. The answer is as soon as there's a need for a second access for that to go through, and I'm not sure of what is abutting that, but as soon as there's a need for a permanent access through there for another subdivision or for additional construction or development, that would become a permanent access. I actually think that says that here. Let's see.
That's the situation. It's set up for if and when as the future development of the agricultural piece of property to the west, as they should develop at some point, then at that point, that road would become, because it would at that point be needed, become a permanent road.
So yeah, in the actual, there's actually there's a deed as well, or a deed of easement. And in that deed of easement, it said it's understood and agreed that at such time as the access becomes a permanent access, into Pheasant Run subdivision from whatever develops beside it, the temporary right-of-way and emergency easement will become null and void, and it'll become a permanent right-of-way at that time. That's a good question. Excellent question.
Yeah, okay.
Further
So-
questions?
So that
Gary,
could be,
well,
Go
at
ahead,
the,
Dave.
at the moment that the Harding properties develop, that could be then become permanent.
Mhm.
If either the other Harding property or the Turner property, if either one developed, that would need to become permanent. That leads to both properties.
Is there another agreement signed and recorded and so forth?
We're dealing with what?
The permanent agreement?
That's part of this one.
A permanent access, you mean,
Oh,
is there an agreement to make it a permanent access?
Correct, or is it automatic?
It would become a permanent agreement. It shifts from temporary to permanent under the temporary right-of-way and emergency access easement. At the time that development occurs right next to it, it ceases to become temporary and then becomes permanent.
Okay,
As it is understood and agreed that at such time as the access becomes a permanent access into Pheasant Run subdivision, the temporary right-of-way and the temporary
mhm.
right-of-way appears, and then the agreement, they only agree to maintain it as a temporary agreement until such time as the permanent road is developed to the site.
So, yeah, that's a good question. When it's permanent, then who maintains it?
The new development, whoever the new developer is,
Okay,
and it would become a public street at that time.
so, yeah, so that,
Basically, David, what would happen is if and when or as somebody else develops, then they would have to have a full public road enter their development. So it would be upon them to establish that as a full permanent road. They would have to put that in just like any other development. Once it was put in, established, and at that point, then it would become cities after the 1-year development period, time period.
would, Mayor brings up a question that I have, and it came up in planning the other night. So as this easement is going to exist at this point in time, what would preclude someone from just hopping over the fence and using that easement as a way to access Island Road? Is it private? Is it for pedestrian? Can pedestrians use it? I guess that's a question for Gary.
Yeah, well, there's no restriction on a pedestrian using it, on going through that way, but as far as traffic goes, it will be blocked
Right.
and gated until such time as we need to crash it as a result of needing to get emergency access there.
The way I would see that is not necessarily a concern of ours at this point. That'd be based on the property owner that own that street. If it became a nuisance, that'd be a legal action they could take up with trespassers at that point. Till then, it's not a concern of ours, I don't think.
No, it's a private. is what
Right.
it is, with a public right over it, so.
Further question?
yeah, one more technical one, Gary, for you. The resolution refers to the, about in the middle of the resolution on the first page, owner desires to grant to Morgan City a temporary right-of-way emergency access easement. Now, moving over to the facilities maintenance agreement. Number 1, close there towards the bottom. The owner or its agent shall, at its sole cost and expense, convey to the city an emergency access easement. Should that also suggest that it conveys a right-of-way and the emergency access easement? Should we have both of those in there where the resolutions? The owner's desiring to convey both? Should the agreement, should the wording include the right-of-way as well as the emergency access?
I think I'm understanding your question. You want, this is only an emergency access is all.
Yeah.
that it is right now, right?
All is.
And so, are you saying that, let me look at
In the resolution, the owner desires two things. He wants to grant a temporary right-of-way and an emergency access easement. And then in the maintenance agreement, we're saying the owner shall, at his own expense, convey the emergency access agreement. Should he also convey a right-of-way, a temporary right-of-way?
So the operative document is the easement, Exhibit B.
Mhm.
Take a look at Exhibit B. It says, after you get through who conveys what to who, it says, they convey a temporary right-of-way and emergency access easement over and through the parcel of the grantor's land. So this is the document that will be recorded with the county,
Well, that works.
and it conveys both. It's
Okay.
kind of like the deed, or the deed of easement is what it is.
Sure,
so-
yeah, being recorded, that's gonna be
This will govern.
it, that'll govern, okay. That works, thank you.
You bet.
Most of the discussion has been on item 7, which is the right of way easement. Item 6 is actually the one before us. Do you have any questions on item 6, which is the final approval of the subdivision? You
Where-
actually, you
yeah.
actually talk about both items together.
Mayor, we're approving both phase 1 and phase 2, correct?
As far as final approval, it'll be up to the developer how fast they want to move on it. We're approving the full development of final approval, which would include phase 1 and phase 2.
Because that's what the map shows us, phase 1 and phase 2.
Yes. The developer may choose to phase them. The developer may choose not to phase them. He may choose to do them both at the same time. We're approving both of them, yes. Any further questions on the Pheasant Rub subdivision final approval, item number 6? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor,
Tony,
if there are no other
Okay,
questions,
yeah. I got you.
Mayor, if there are no other questions, I would move to approve the final approval, or make a motion to approve final approval of the Pheasant Run subdivision.
is there a second?
I'll second that, Mayor.
Okay, it's been moved by Tony, seconded by Jeffrey, that we grant final approval for the Pheasant Run subdivision. Is there any discussion on that motion? Okay, see now we'll proceed to vote. I'd like to do by roll call vote on that. David,
I'm in favor.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
and Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. Mr. Pitcher, since you're with us, is there anything you'd like to add to this at this point? Or any councilman would like to add a question? Again, we just approved it. Ty, would you unmute David? Or,
I muted myself, so I'm
okay,
good.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. If anybody has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer any questions or concerns.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move to the next item. Any questions?
Just, Dave, where are you on your progress? What's your next step?
As soon as you guys approve this, we go to the bank and let them know that you guys approved it and they fund it, and we close with Hardings, and we are trying to break ground as soon as possible. And we're looking at having Wardell's do it. That's basically it. Just move as quick as we can. We've got a lot of people interested in lots.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
I do have one question, Mayor. Last time we had a whole room full of neighbors. Are the neighbors have they been appeased with being able to talk with you now?
I think probably what happened with that is it's been, at that point, the group of neighbors were there because of the public hearing and because the program was new. I think they've all accepted the concept and the idea that it is a go, that it meets all the parameters, and it's a proper subdivision with proper sizes. I think they've always come to understand that's the way it is. Any other questions, input? Okay. Seeing none, let's move to the next item number 7. We've already discussed that a fair amount. That is a resolution on the easement. Any further discussion on that or any further questions? Or I'll entertain a motion on item 7, resolution 20-14.
So Mayor,
Yes, Gary.
if, for the sake of Dave and the others, if you go back and take a look at the drawing, the subdivision drawing, you can see the easement and the way it's laid out. In the second drawing, there's 2 drawings attached to the preliminary approval.
Right.
And you can actually see the way the easement is drawn out there. The easement document actually describes a turnaround, and then it describes a 60-foot right-of-way leading to the other property. If you look at that, and so really the temporary portion of it is that turnaround, and that's the reason you've got so many arcs in the description. And then it also describes a temporary access there that must be maintained and snow removed and that type of thing. But if you take a look at the road itself, the road is dedicated all the way to the property line. And the temporary part of it is that turnaround that you've got at the end there. There is a 60-foot wide road that leads to the next development. I just wanted to make that point, that it's not a small 20-foot wide temporary road, but it is actually a full road. And then you've got a turnaround. The turnaround is the piece that is actually being described in that easement. So
Well, that's good clarification. Thank you, Gary. That helps.
So that's, Gary, that's actually the
No.
actual subdivision. The easement leaves from that point and goes back to 300 West. And so the
it does go.
easement and the right of way is not depicted in the in this, but there is a 60-foot easement, and then it's just the 20 feet that has to be maintained for fire access.
And how far does that 20 feet run, Ty? Do you remember?
It goes from there all the way to
300
300
West
West.
Island Road. It runs the major road going down Island Road.
Was it 300 and something feet?
Is it appropriate for me to interject?
Yeah, we're just
Go ahead,
go ahead.
David.
So I was wrong on that. So
Yeah. If the easement runs from the end of that lot where you're looking, and then runs back to the east, back to Island Road is where it runs to. And part of negotiations, and then again, it's been a long time, and thank the Harding family as well. Give you a little more background with that. The Harding family worked with Tom Hemming, and they done some ground swap back and forth. They've done some realignment of lines, and that's where they come up with the 60-foot right-of-way in there, with the idea of, again, future development to the west. What they agreed to with the fire department and the fire code is 20 foot of that needs to be a surface such that emergency equipment could travel on that surface. Come from the asphalt of 300 West / Island Road up to that northerly gate that you see in that second subdivision. That's the long and short of it. Is the 200 feet is a surface that could be maintained / snow plowed, so forth, to maintain potential emergency access. But all part of this whole deal is they have a 60-foot right-of-way, of which that 20 foot is part of. That right-of-way leads from Island Road up to the Harding and Turner property. That has been a field road. That field road accessed those various properties to bring your combine in, bring your planter in, bring your discs in, bring your harrows back out, haul your hay in now. That road's been used for a long, long, long time for those purposes. And they have extended it by trading ground legally between the property owners to get that 60-foot right of way in there. I don't know if I explained it or not.
Yeah, to be clear though, that is a 60-foot right away with a 20-foot just emergency
Surface.
surface.
Well, so,
So-
okay, so for
So
it to
you're-
become permanent, then will a 20 feet turn into a 60-foot road?
Just like a regular city road. Yes, it will.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to be temporary versus permanent then.
Sorry, I could probably.
No, that's fine. Any further questions?
help you.
Hopefully I clarified. I don't. Any further questions or clarifications on that? Okay.
We're all in agreement.
Okay, we're looking at then at the item number 7, which is a resolution on the right of way / emergency we've been talking about. Any further question on that, or I'll entertain a motion on that? Resolution 20-14.
Mayor, I'd make a motion to approve resolution 20-14, a resolution adopting and approving the Morgan City Facilities Maintenance Agreement for a secondary fire access road and improvements to allow emergency vehicles to access the Pheasant Run subdivision, period.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, been motion by David, seconded by Eric. We passed resolution 20-14. A resolution adopting and approving the Morgan City Facilities Maintenance Agreement for secondary fire access road and improvements to allow emergency vehicles to access the Pheasant Run subdivision. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Again, roll call. David,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
Jeffrey,
Aye.
Eric.
Aye.
Okay, motion passed unanimously. That passed that resolution 20-14 then. Okay, thank you for those. Thanks for getting through that. Those are finalized. Okay, next item, we'll move down to item 8. It's city reports and city manager and the mayor and council. I'll turn the time over to Ty to give us some updates on other city items.
Hey, thanks, Mayor. I've already kind of given the caboose update when we were talking about the land agreement. I was just going to talk mostly just on the COVID-19. It still changes every day, but most of you probably already know that the governor is going to change our state designation from red to orange on Friday, allowing a few more activities, businesses to have dine-in options, or restaurants to have dine-in options, and a few things like that. But the main message is nothing is changing. So the restrictions or the concern is still there. Parks are still closed. People are still encouraged to work remotely from home. You're supposed to wear masks in public. So Rachel just joined us, so we'll talk about the caboose and then I'll come back to my COVID update. So if she doesn't want to listen to the whole thing, she doesn't have to. Is that okay, Mayor?
Yeah, go ahead and unmute her. Rachel, go ahead. Rachel, we'd like to turn time over to you to give us your viewpoint update of the caboose. So that you're aware, earlier in the meeting, we already passed resolution that we had on tonight as far as resolution for the caboose and for the property that was passed.
Okay.
At this point, just kind of discussion on where it's at. We looked at that page that you so eloquently put together that listed those next step items, if you will. We have access to that. We've looked at that a little bit. So we just maybe like to have you update us on where you think the project is and what some of the next steps are.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you guys want to take a look at sort of that, I tried to put together a little timeline of what we need to do next moving forward. So it looks like we'll have all the agreements on our end completed as of tonight, and Denise will be returning those to Rick Harris, the Union Pacific Manager of Real Estate, to get those signed. And once that's all done, I guess we can start looking at getting the site prepped with Skyview Excavation. I don't know if we have any tentative dates set with that. Ty, do you know, any discussion been
No.
made with that?
I was hoping that we'd just talk about it tonight, but Jeff isn't in the meeting.
Oh,
Jeff Wardell. So I thought it would be a good time just to talk to him about it while he was here, but
Well, shoot.
I'll have to call him offline and just see what his time frame is.
Okay, sounds good. So that's kind of the next step. We'll be getting the site prepped. Ty and I have sort of talked that, you know, as the site's being prepped, that we could also then maybe look at getting the caboose, getting at least prepared to be painted. So doing like sandblasting, cleaning, that sort of thing. I have been in touch with Randall Heath. He lives in Mountain Green and owns a business that does that sort of work. He can kind of do it all the way from sandblasting to this process that uses dry ice, which is for more sensitive things. And so I asked him to go take a look at the caboose, and he did that, but he didn't have a lead-based paint test with him, so he was going to go back either tonight or tomorrow to do that, because depending on if it's lead paint, that'll change the procedure for him. But I'll be hearing back from him soon on what he thinks. He was going to try to get us a bid together. And with that in mind, I don't know, do we need to get, you know, a number of bids in on this, or, you know, if he's...
Yeah, so some of that's contingent on pricing. So it depends on, and I have no idea how to even estimate that. So if we're in the couple $1,000 range, then we don't need to bid it. If it's above $3,000, we need to get soft bids. So we need to at least call around.
Okay, so depending on what his price comes in at, then we might need to look at a few other companies, which we've made a contact with the painter as well. And it sounds like he also has some contacts with that can do sandblasting. So that at least sounds like we might have a few other options as far as getting bids. But if not, I asked him about his availability, which can kind of change from day to day. But as of now, he does have some availability in the next couple of weeks, if we chose to use him for this project. I did talk with Travis Oakton. He is the rail manager of the section that goes through Morgan. He is now on our email discussion group, so he can chime in on things and kind of know what we're doing and when we're doing things. They've locked down the spur track that the train or the caboose is on. So that makes it safe for us to be able to go and approach the caboose and look around it. Linda Smith actually she went and put a padlock on it to secure it for us. And so I'll get in touch with her and coordinate getting a key so that the city has that key and has the security for that. So if anybody needs to get in and out of the caboose, we'll have that ability as well. There was some concern, you know, we're kind of looking at just doing the outside, but the interior is basically just the metal, and I guess there's maybe some erosion in the floor that I don't know if we want to try to get it taken care of now as we're doing all the other exterior work, just so that in the future it'll be ready to go as far as putting up walls or flooring or whatnot. We won't have to deal with the metal work, because it's been sort of suggested that we get replace the metal floor. And I haven't been in there, so I'm not really quite sure what it looks like and what the situation is. But I did contact a contractor to see if they would meet with us out there and kind of maybe give us some recommendations and what they think. Because if any welding was needed to be done, especially on the walls, we would want to get that done before we paint, because if we were to weld after it's been painted, it can damage the paint, even if it's from the interior. Let's see, so we will be coordinating with Travis on getting it moved, getting the track panel and the rock on site after the site has been prepped. And between us and Travis, we'll coordinate with Durbanos on the actual moving of the caboose at that time. And so, yeah, we're hoping that maybe we can get the caboose cleaned up before it's moved. And that just kind of all depends on our timing with Skyview Excavation and contracts and all that. So we'll kind of keep working on that, towards that. And then we've also kind of are in the process of contacting painters and seeing about getting some bids on that as well. And again, depending on timeline, getting it done before or after it's been moved. Probably will be done after, I'm assuming. Might be better for it to do it after it's been moved, just because you don't want to mess up the paint job with moving. So I think that will probably be better done once it's in place. So yeah, like I said, I have a few contacts with that, and it's good to know that we have that sort of $3,000 line. So we can kind of see where these things are going to cost, and if we need to get some more bids, we'll do that. I think, and then after that, we'll work on getting, any other landscape or surfaces around the caboose done once the restoration and painting's been completed. And talking about getting benches and tables and garbage cans for visitors, that's something that my little committee, I can put to work on, seeing if they can get some donations. Any questions, follow up? Ty, do you have anything to add?
Nope, that's way better than I could have done, so.
Rachel, what moves the
Appreciate
caboose?
your help.
What was that?
What moves the caboose? How is it moved into place?
Durbanos will move it in two pieces. They'll move like the top part of the caboose can be separated from the wheelbase. And so they have some cranes that will come in and put those onto a platform truck and move those pieces.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions of Rachel?
What was that?
I just wanted,
Just have any further questions or input?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to thank her. So she's pulled a lot of moving parts all together and been able to get her arms around a lot of this stuff for us. So I really appreciate her efforts, and it's working really well with different entities to keep it moving as fast as it is, even though it seems like it's going really slow. But
Well, we've all been kind of thrown in this
mix.
new torrent of trying to get stuff done. So I'm like, it's been a little bit chaotic. So I appreciate that, and I'm glad that things are moving forward.
Thank you, Rachel.
Okay.
Okay, turn time back over to Ty for some further updates. Rachel, you're welcome to stay if you want, or you're welcome to leave, whatever you want to do.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor.
So just to continue with the changes on the COVID situation, like I said, the parks are closed. A lot is the same that we're currently dealing with. One of our questions as a city that's kind of hanging out there is what to do with our park reservations. When the governor extends his order on Friday, I think if the parks are closed, it's my preference is we just cancel reservations. So the kind of the point of a reservation is if you're going to have a large group gathering and we're not sure, you know, by the end of the month, what conditions we're going to be operating under. One of the things that has changed is that it'll go from 10 to 20 people. So you can have groups of 20 people, but you still need to be cautious of what those 20 people are. So family members and other people that have been taking precautions, that sort of thing. One of the things that's unique is the process. So right now we're under the governor's directive, and it'll change to an order, which means it'll be under the governor's direction on designation. So as we move from red to orange to yellow to green, it's the state that's going to be making those determinations. And so each local health department isn't going to just assess their own situation and come up with their own protocol. They need to, local health departments will be consulting with the state Department of Health, and then the governor will make those changes. So right now we're all in red. As we transition, there's going to be pockets of the state that'll stay in red and some that are in yellow, but that'll keep people from going straight to green. You know, if they're a community that says, hey, we don't even have it here, and our local health department says we can open the floodgates, they have to run that process through the governor, because we'll be under an order and under his authority on the health protocols. And so that's one of the unique pieces, I think, because, you know, as we transition, we're going to have people in different situations, and that's how that'll be managed. Denise sent out the latest document. It's 20-something pages, but it has a lot of real good detail in there. And then our local health department also sent some recommendations. And so as staff, as businesses ask us questions, they need to follow those guidelines, but if they have specific questions or concerns, we're directing them to the health department. So if they can carry out their business and do it safely with the right distances, and they're testing their employees as they come to work, and they're providing and wearing masks and those sort of things, then businesses can start to reopen. The very last thing is going to be the large group gatherings. And so the big community events will be the last thing to come back online. I've been working with the chamber, and right now we don't think we'll probably have the 4th of July celebration, but we are planning on doing fireworks. What we're talking about is maybe even if it's just stay at home and watch them, and we move the fireworks back to the school where more people can see them, or watch from your car, or something along those lines. We don't have anything determined, anything specific yet, but we kind of feel like that's still a important thing for the 4th of July, and for people in the community to recognize that day, because you can do it from a distance, but all the other activities might be canceled, like the parade and that sort of thing. So boat regatta, kids games. Anyway, that's just, it's hard to tell. Nobody knows what it's going to look like in July. So we're just trying to make our kind of next steps and worst case scenario plans. Right now they're trying to figure out a way to do the chamber golf tournament. So that's going to be in June. The golf pro said that he could accommodate, there's a way to do that safely so that it's not a big congregation of people, but they would come in and go straight to whatever hole they're assigned, and that would be groups of 4. And then they would just pick up a sack lunch as they finish their round of golf, and not have a gathering for the prizes and that sort of thing. So they're being creative and trying to do as much as we can, but trying to figure out how to do it safely. So that's kind of where we stand. And does anybody have any questions on where we're at or what we've been doing as a city?
Do we know yet, Ty, what color we moved to?
We'll be going to orange, from red to orange on Friday. So the current directive expires May 1st, and the new order is going to be issued before the
Expiration.
directive expires, and so it'll go into effect, I think, on Friday. So.
And when you say area, we're part of Ogden. Is it our health district?
Yeah, we're Weber and Morgan County Health Department. So the two
Okay.
county, we share a health department with Weber County.
Then just an update. What are our Morgan County's known cases?
So we've had 9 total, 6 recoveries, and 3 are currently active.
Okay.
I haven't looked at today's report though, so that was
Still, yeah, could change in the hour. Still no community spread though, is that correct?
correct. And for a long time, it felt like a long time, we just had the 7 cases, and we had 4 recoveries at the time. And then when we picked up the 2 new ones, they were both in the same household. And so it's been really contained. We've been really fortunate here not to have any community spread. They've all been person to person known contacts, that once somebody got diagnosed and everybody else got tested because of their proximity, then a couple more people. And that's kind of common statewide. The community spread's really slowed down, and we're maintaining kind of that 100 a day trend, even though there's spikes and valleys and 80 to 120, but it's ratio wise, it's like a 1-to-1 almost, instead of like a 1 to 2.5. So when we first started, it was like for every 1 case, we had 2.5 other cases out there. And it's really, it's not a flat line, but it's a steady, gradual incline. The other important thing for our health department or our health district is we've only had 5 people hospitalized. And so you can see that the capacity in our, McCady and Ogden Regional has been preserved. We've done a really good job that way.
Hey, Ty, I got a question for you. So I looked
Okay.
at those numbers yesterday myself, and you're right. I saw that this is good news for you, Dave, okay, me and you. But of
Yeah.
those nine cases, there was only 3 of them that were over 60. So, pat
Hey,
yourself.
let's party, Tony.
But I saw the same thing. I saw the 9 total with the 6 recoveries. Does that mean that there's still 9 that's active, or does it mean that there's only 3 that's active? Do they count
There's
the
3 that's active. Yep.
They count the recoveries in that total of 9? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you're in good shape, Dave. Me and you and
Right
Ray.
on. I'm ready to roll.
I drove past and saw, is Riverside Park open or closed? The chain was down and cars parked in there this afternoon. Is that?
So what?
Yep.
Yeah. So what we've done is just open the parking lot, but not the facilities. A lot of people parking out on the road, and then it was also cumbersome for our guys to go in and out of the facilities to go move the mowers and take care of the grass and that sort of thing. And so the parking lot is open, but we still are going to have signs on the pavilions and the playgrounds, and the bathrooms are still going to be closed. But the grassy area, the trail, people can still go use the grounds, but not the facilities, if that makes sense.
I had a couple of other people ask me, what is the drop box going to be available again over in front of?
It's available. So we have a brand new drop box. It's closer to the building. It's not right out by the road. It's a lot more sturdy than the other one was, and it has more capacity. So before, the old drop box, after a few people dropped their payments in, you could literally just stick your hand in and pull them out. And this is a lot deeper. And we redid the sidewalk, curb and gutter out in front of the building, but the new one is available. It's just people are expecting to see it where it was. We've had a couple of people call and say, I couldn't find your drop box. And we're like, yeah, you got to look up a little. And
Has it been there a while, the new one?
just this week.
Oh,
Yeah, just,
Okay,
well, actually, it was like last Friday, I think it got installed. So I don't know timing of who you've talked to, but just make sure they look around is my point. The other nice thing for us is the new location of that drop box is on our security camera. So we can see the security cameras on the inside looking out the window, but it does pick up the movement because it's motion activated. And it's visible at night. So we can, you know, if we have payments missing or someone's tampering with it, we'll have that on video.
Other questions?
Yeah, if there's no more questions, I'll just give you another quick update. The island or the Mahogany Ridge substation is rehabbed and it's energized. We haven't put any load on it. Next step, we're just doing a fuse coordination study and getting all of the getting it all tuned up so that we can put load on it. So we're trying to put that one back online mid-May. So then we can start working on the high school sub. So we'll have essentially two rehab or brand new and rehabbed substations. And so that's really good progress there. Really appreciate our guys. And we hired a new old lineman. So Jeremy Webb is he's certified as a journeyman lineman and applied for our position, and we hired him. He started back on our crew. So we have a crew of 3 again, and so we're happy to have the help. And just in time, our power guys are going to be doing the subdivision work in the one that we approved tonight, and also the one behind Tractor Supply. So that'll be good. And then just an update on the hotel. So there's an area behind all the businesses on Commercial Street from 125 north. We have a easement recorded, and we've got a contract in place to install a water main behind all of those businesses that will tie into the hotel. And it's allowing the hotel to move their meter from Commercial Street back to the hotel property. And we're getting an easement from the hotel right now. We're working on an easement because that water line will be looped between those 2 streets, and we'll be able to feed the hotel from either direction. So if we have a problem with the water line on Commercial Street, we can feed it from 125 north. So that'll be a really good improvement. And once it becomes looped, then it can't be a private water line anymore because it's connected to our entire system. And so we're going through that process right now. I think it's just an upgrade and a lot better water service that we'll be able to provide the hotel. And I think that's all of the updates that I can remember. So
I've got one while you're thinking about it. I don't know, Gary and Denise, will you 2 practice? Can you do this in the chorus together? The Utopia update. I'd like you 2 to give this, do a chorus of this one.
No,
Denise and Gary?
No, yeah, Denise and Gary. No.
I don't
Anyway,
know
with
if
the
Gary
Gary?
even knows.
Yeah,
Denise,
no, Gary texted us the other day. So
Gary texted the other day. Gary's excited as can be.
Oh,
I'll
good.
give you the number Denise found out today, and I'll let Gary talk to it for just a minute. Denise reached out to him, and the number they gave Denise was 462. However, the city hookup counts for 20, so that would be 482 as of yesterday. Gary, would you like to chime in on that, please?
You guys have officially broken even according to Roger, which means that you've reached in a very, very short time the maximum number that you need in order to make to not have to use ever your backstop, and it just goes up from here. So you should be able to increase it from there. But you are the fastest city in the United States right now as far as speeds go.
Is that right?
You're faster in Layton because more of your population is connected than Layton.
Wow.
To give you a rough update, back in March 24th, we had 355. And then April 14th, we had 413. And today we got 482. So within the month, we've increased over 100 just in the last 30 days.
Morgan,
Well, it helps that the old service is being discontinued in what, 3 days?
Well, and we ordered a pandemic too, so the demand
Yeah.
went way up.
There you go.
I don't know how you did that, but it was, I won't say it was good, but it was fortuitous.
Hey, we're
Yeah.
we're optimists, and so everything has a silver lining, right?
So I heard one of the county commissioners down in where you were before, down in Monticello, complaining that they still had dial-up
Yep.
in the county. But they were
They're
still,
yeah, they're still trying to get broadband just to the schools, so they could use schools as hubs for, you know, yeah, they're really struggling with doing public meetings because of their lack of capacity on the internet.
that's what he said. He said none of them can get speeds fast enough to be able to run a public meeting, to run a Zoom meeting. So they just have to do what Morgan did. That's it.
Doesn't Tony still have dial-up?
I'm in the 21st century, Dave.
All right.
I'm a proud Utopia participant.
Okay.
Well, congratulations to all of you. I think the credit goes to each one of you for taking the risk, but also for seeing the future. 'Cause I think this will build your business park, and I think it'll do a lot of good for your businesses as well. So
Gary, one thing you should find out if there's any other cities that have fiber internet that don't have a stoplight. I mean, if we get full internet before we have our first stoplight, I think that's probably something to talk about, right?
I'll bet we're
that is
totally, I'll bet we're totally unique in that situation.
amazing. I think you are.
It is fortunate that we have it though, the way it's turned out. I mean, we can have these Zoom meetings and we must have been inspired.
Yeah, you'd be watching the Wheel of Death right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I always tell my wife when it takes a long time to go to the grocery store that we didn't move here because we're in a hurry, but that doesn't keep us from wanting fast internet.
Any further updates or questions from anybody?
Thanks, Mayor.
Hey, just a couple of things from the planning meeting, and Tony, chime in. We'll be brief, but at the meeting last week, they considered 2 historic overlay guideline reviews. One on the bank building, and John Patterson had some renderings of what that would look like. His initial thought was to have the name First National Bank on the front of the building, and it was felt that that could lead to some confusion. We were, naming maybe a business rather than the building, and there could even be some confusion in whether is it really a bank. So with that, they made one change. They'll call it the First National Building rather than, they took the name bank out. And the commission had a positive recommendation on a staff report, so that was approved. The other one was tabled, and that was the Buzzies. The face on the Buzzies didn't have enough information, and the staff report was missing on that, so they'll bring that up next meeting. What did I leave off, Tony?
Well, maybe for the benefit of Jeffrey and Eric, I was going to mention this, and then it wasn't, but I'll mention it. So the Planning Commission did on this Pheasant Run subdivision, they did have a certain degree of consternation. And the lots are all 10,000 square feet, and they're all meet the required 80-foot frontage. But some of the Planning Commission members were not happy with the configuration of the lots. But the bottom line is they met requirements. I think what they didn't like was some of the lots were 80 feet and 200 feet deep, but the point is, you know, it meets our requirements. So that was, in my opinion, it was a little bit of a moot point. The other one is you know, I'm not sure at some point how many lots they're going to allow to be in a subdivision without requiring a second. This subdivision meets the requirements, no question about it, especially with this emergency access. But anyway, I think some of the planning commission members have a question as to how many lots they want put into a subdivision without having a second dedicated access and well, entrance and exit. So I just throw that out there for you, just to kind of let you know how the planning, what the planning commission was dealing with, thinking about. So
I appreciate that update from both of you. It's always kind of one of those things. So appreciate it.
Any further questions or updates from anybody? Okay, all right, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. Okay, Eric first.
I was just kidding. It's nothing. Let's leave.
Okay,
We're good.
meeting adjourned.
good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Denise.
Yep, see you next time.
Next time? Yeah, okay.
Next time.
All right.